I know this is a promo for Line in the Streets, and I do have one question that pertains to that. But I kind of wanted to steer away from promoting the show. I wanted to. So my questions are a lot about you, and so that's just where I was coming from.
Me too. It's more general, actually. It's interesting with promotion. I don't, you're probably not on Facebook. No, I am. And initially I thought, well, I'll just go on it to promote Rare's shows.
Yes.
You know what? People are onto that. If you people are promoting, nobody's interested, and I'm not either. But what
Right.
we're interested in is what you had for lunch, or when your nephew
Right.
was born, or your
Exactly.
grandmother died, and that is really what it's for. So I will, I do put on a link, and people were actually very interested in this one, particularly because I had a great drawing of Tracy Wright from the original production that Sue LePage did.
Wow.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's her design, her original design drawing. Yeah, and
Wow.
it's hanging in my living room. So I thought, bring that, Tracy and Sue and Sue LePage's drawing of Tracy's costume. It's a costume design.
Ah.
She gave it to me, I think, closing night, and I have it on my living room wall. So yeah,
Wow.
yes, we did. We did a public workshop, which is this incredibly wonderful, extravagant thing that Tarragon, I think they still do, where you have like 3 weeks to just workshop and then a public workshop showing with scripts. A lot of people actually prefer that, interestingly, because there's something so intimate.
I like that idea. Although my process is a little different. I kind of like it stretched out. The thing I don't like is going to rehearsal all day, listening, being inspired, going to a workshop or a reading, and then being tired, and then not having enough energy to do the rewrites. I think when I was younger, I did. So I kind of, well, at least for the last 20 years, I've liked to, if someone wants to give me, like, I've never had a 3 week dramaturgical or a development workshop. I love that idea because you can really actually get it up on its feet and see where the knots are and not have to wait for the first production. If someone's giving me a week, that's the most I've had, I'll say, can you chop it up into 5 days and one day for the performance? So 5 days. So I'll do one day a week for the next 5 weeks, and the sixth uh, week we will do a presentation. But what it gives me time for the things I discover in the reading or in whatever's taking place in that kind of developmental workshop. It gives it time for it to like settle in me. But that you had 3 weeks to look at Lion, and how did you? What was your process for this 3 weeks? Were you directing it as well?
I was, yeah.
Oh,
So what it was is, as you say, I mean, luckily it worked that time, writing out of kind of fear and immediacy. And I was young and strong. I was just 40. So, and these wonderful actors, it really was just seeing it on its feet clears your vision another 2/3, don't you find? Yeah.
absolutely. Because the action in your head has a way of morphing and
Yeah,
working in a way that it doesn't in three-dimensional space. So just
absolutely.
and I think sometimes I get more ideas or something that I thought that wasn't important. When I see it up on its feet or physicalized, I go, oh, that is important.
And the
Yeah.
cringe factor comes in early. I can think, oh, that's terrible line. And a
Yeah.
wonderful actor just did it and it was terrible. So it's me. It's definitely me.
And that's interesting because sometimes the first time I hear a play I've read, I always think it's awful. So I
Do
have
you?
to make sure I hear it twice because the first time I'm listening to this kind of transfer between what's going on in my mind and what's going on outside.
Yeah,
Even
that's
though
true.
I don't read the script when I'm hearing the first reading, but I'm so self-conscious. I'm so, in a way, I like to put on that I'm tough and brave, but it's kind of like I want to write something that knocks your head off and really makes you think. But by the time I get to opening night, all I really want is for people to like my work. So, you know,
I know. Isn't that pathetic? We're like, but did you like it?
exactly, we're pathetic. So in a way, it's like just submitting to processes are it can be sometimes difficult, but it can be I can really start hearing stuff. But so it takes me at least the first read to maybe I'll get a few things, but on the first day, I always read it once and then read it again in the afternoon, and I can really hear it.
Well,
I
I
don't have
can't
to
hear
do
it the first time either, but it's for the opposite reason. I'm so thrilled. It's like a 6-year-old at a birthday party, just so thrilled to have these amazing actors read my words. I think it's just perfect. And then the second, and then the third, and then the fourth, and then I really go to it. Yeah.
Um, you began, like, from what I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you did not start out to be a playwright or a writer of any kind. Did you not train to be an actor?
I did. Yeah. You know, it's funny. At Queen's, I didn't even take playwriting. I But a lot of that was for kind of sad reasons that it didn't occur to me that it's something that I could do. Every play we studied was British or American and almost all white males. And the only Canadian play we studied was Robertson Davies, who is adorable in his way, but his plays aren't his greatest strength. His I think the Fifth Business is great, but yeah. So there was no value placed on our voices at all,
Absolutely.
and I of course come from the white privilege, and even still as a woman. So yes, even
Absolutely.
more for marginalized communities, of course, 100 times what I experienced. So it didn't even occur to me, and I pursued acting. But you know, after I finished at NTS, and I said to my mother, I'm going to write. I just want to write. She said, "Oh, well, it's a total waste of money. Then you going there." And I thought, no, because I was immersed in text and what the theater is and what an actor needs.
Can you identify that point where you fell in love with writing? Like, whether, even if you can't identify the exact point, do you know when it is? When it was?
Yes, yes. In fact, it was at NTS. Needed to find a monologue for mask work with the great Jean-Pierre Lefebvre. And I couldn't find one that was right for my mask. So I thought, well, I'll write it. And also, I had a boyfriend who was a poet and would take me to these awful poetry readings in lofts around Montreal. And I thought, God, I can do that. And so I wrote them a monologue for this mask, and my peers, not the teachers, but the peers were very, very supportive.
That is fantastic.
And it's something became electric in me there. In fact, the teachers at my last interview said, "Well, you've been having some success with these little monologues of yours on Friday nights, but don't ever think you could be a playwright." I reminded one of that.
Ooh,
I love
that
it.
it's amazing. One of the things that interests me is the way a teacher can injure and squish a student. And the fact that they didn't stop you, they didn't, crush your soul, leads me to want to ask you about your approach to teaching playwriting, because I want to, I'm in the process of finding out how to edit a book on how to teach the pedagogy of playwriting, how to
Oh,
teach it.
wow. Wonderful.
And I've already talked to you about, contributing a chapter, because I really want to look at the different ways, but I'm really interested in, how do you teach it? How have you learned how to teach it? Who were you inspired by? What's motivated? What's your teaching philosophy? Any of the above?
I remember someone, all my students or people I've done masters with and stuff have raved about you and said that your teaching is like a big embrace. And I'm sure an embrace also, which is tough at the same time. And yes, my philosophy is to embrace and to keep them on their voice, what
Yes.
they need to say, not to try to please or censor themselves.
Yes. The
Yeah,
notion that there's a well-written play, I
yeah,
think that notion, well, while it's less popular now, I think it really, it's still pervasive, the notion that this is a good play and that's not a good play. And I try to tell the students, who are in my class, I go to plays with friends, and I will love something and they will hate it. I go to other things and they will love it and I will hate it. And
yeah.
I suggest to them, what is popular is what more people like. It doesn't mean it's better.
That's all it means. And also, I say you are reinventing everything. I mean, the incredible gender revolution that's happened that I'm just learning from every day.
Absolutely.
Oh, I bow to them. It's incredible. the shackles of the gender binary. They're just teaching us so much, and said, teach us about, you restructure, you redefine structure, redefine it all. Just keep our attention, I guess.
And I think that this notion of us, learning things. People look at me and consider me veteran writer, and I think I'm just learning things. I just learned I could do that.
Yep, me too.
It's just it is inspiring seeing people break rules.
Oh, it's great.
And also seeing that it still works.
Yeah.
I have a little saying that I try to. It boils down to keep it interesting, moment to moment.
Yeah.
You can be fooled by that. There's this arc, this Freytag's pyramid, that rising action to climax to resolution. But notice, I remember during my time working with the people at Nightwood and just really soaking in a lot of the teachings and readings about feminism, but someone I was reading, and I don't even remember who it was, suggested, isn't that interesting how it resembles a male climax?
So true. So true.
And so, what if structure was different? What if it resembled something else?
Yeah. And also, I like to remind them that anything can happen on a stage, that we live with ghosts around us all the time. My father, my mother, my grandparents, all of it. And on stage, it works so well to have them there. Just expand, let anything happen.
Yeah, I agree. I like the way you said that. It's true. Who do I carry with me all the time?
Yeah. And also to not, what they worry a lot about design, like, well, how would, if I say we're in on the top of an iceberg, I say, don't worry, the designers are incredible, or you have nothing.
That's right. And I say to them, imagine a $30 million budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about that. And also, it's not our job unless we are directing our own work. When you started directing your own work, did you always direct your own work? How did that come about?
It came about because of struggles with, I sort of always really did pretty much co-direct it, except with a couple of notable exceptions. And certainly people can direct my work better than I can, or be more original, but I just want to get it right. And it can be quite workaday when I do it, but it's what I intended. And then from then on, go crazy. I've seen, directors do much more imaginative job than I could. But
so the first production you're committed
to get it right.
I agree, and I have I don't know why we've been so discouraged from, playwrights are often discouraged from directing their own work. I think that those ideas are coming from directors who don't want us to direct our own work, because some, especially for the first production, I find that what I'm not seeing a production. Like I take a long time to write plays, and because the truth is, if I'm going to be frank, it's because of the story's not strong enough. I don't like it enough yet to let it free. What I mean by that is, when I let it free and then I get into the do you like it mode, and someone pokes it, it will have a dent, and they will say, oh, there's a little hole there, fix it. And I'll go, do you like it now? Do you like it now?
Oh no, it's terrible. Yeah. And you go this way and that way, and yeah.
Do you have dramaturges that you work with?
Well, I used to work sometimes with Iris Turcotte, the late great Iris. Did you ever work with Iris?
I did work with Iris for a time. One of the things that I work with a lot of dramaturges. I don't like one person to work with one person because of I know myself. I want people to like it. So I make sure that I have a lot of people who have different opinions. So I did work with Iris. She was one of the people I worked with. My main dramaturges for Harlem Duet were Kate Lushington and Diane Roberts, but I also sent it to other people, and she was one of the people. Iris Turcotte was one of the people. So you worked with her, Iris?
Oh, she's just fun. I mean, and she'll phone at midnight and go, I know the answer to scene 2, and it got to the point where I was like, Iris, I am going to cut that scene. Sorry. And she'd go, nope, I can see in your body. That's your instinct. It's right. Go do it. But it's just great to have somebody who's as interested as you are. You don't want to bore your friends or partner.
Exactly.
Last play I worked with Fourth Line with the wonderful Kim Blackwell. She was a
Ah,
fabulous dramaturg. She kept me on voice when I thought, oh, this is too much, or she'd say, bring that back. She was fabulous. And as a director, she was fabulous. She had a big grand vision, Fourth Line, and children, and a huge cast and people running across fields and tractors. Oh, you've got to do something there. It's amazing.
oh,
Anyway, she was ideal. And she would actually have the strength of ego and character to ask me after every scene in rehearsal, do you have anything to add, Judith?
that's lovely.
Yeah, it was amazing. Rather than me feeling like a pain in the ass, which I usually feel like.
What? And I think a lot of people will look at you and sometimes me and go, well, they know what they want. We have to push back. They don't see something. And so I'm finding, I don't know whether it's the times, I'm finding that I'm coming along across some tension, some friction, uh, not only in my writing, but even in my directing. And, at a certain point I go, is this me? Am I just hard to work with? I
Is
remember,
tension like from other people?
well,
Friction?
tension from other people, or even, I think that I direct because I want control. I go, I think I see it. I think I want to do the first production.
But you have an amazing physical vision. I mean, I have to say, you're a far better director than I am. I mean, you really have a full physicalized staged vision.
But that doesn't happen until afterwards, and then until I really like the play, and then it takes me a whole long time because I have to understand what I've written, which takes me sometimes I'm writing things and I don't understand what it means, and
Yeah.
I have to catch up with my unconscious. And so things take me a long time, and then I have to bring on a team because I really love it when we don't get paid enough in theater for the process to be horrible.
Yeah.
So to bring on good people, to have a good process, and I don't know, I think that what I've been finding in directing, I don't know, I can't tell what it is. I directed a show, not one I wrote, several years ago, and I was trying to explore something. I was trying to explore where the intermission was. I thought, maybe it doesn't go where it traditionally goes. And
Mm.
I heard the artistic director didn't like that idea. And I went, well, I don't know, it might go back to the original place.
Mm.
Well, and the stage manager and the artistic director that would keep the artistic director informed of what I was doing. And they wrote to the estate of the writer to ask if she could do this without my knowledge.
Wow.
Not only that, the stage manager walked into the rehearsal room and threw the letter down on my desk and said,
What?
you have to put the intermission right here. Like,
Oh, that's sneaky and sleazy.
sneaky and sleazy. This is like a reputable company. It's like, so I find that I'm, instead of things like that helping me develop hard skin, it makes me more sensitive. And it makes me more like, it's painful, it's ridiculous, but I think a lot of people are in theater for control. As the writer, I have to admit, I want control. I want control of this vision. I want to see, because I'm a theater person. I also, like you, studied acting.
Yeah.
And then was pulled into writing because I was auditioning for stuff that didn't look like anybody in my family. So I was going to be the slave, the runaway slave, the servant, the prostitute, the drug dealer's girlfriend. Like those were this was the 80s. These are the roles I was going up for.
I remember Sandy Ross saying to me once, I am never wearing another headscarf and running through the woods again.
Absolutely. It's like, whoa. And most of these stories, a large percentage of these stories, were not written by people of color. And so because I was hanging out with the feminists, I remember Kate Lushington was artistic director. And one of the things she said to me, she said, our writing, the worst it can be is as mediocre as much of what is out there. That's the worst it can be. Go on, right. Just right. So that kind of thing, that was encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
I,
it was Africa Solo. Was that your first?
that was my first. It actually wasn't my first play. I wrote a play at university. I did take playwriting. I took 2 playwriting courses. One playwriting course I dropped. I did not like the approach of the instructor. The second playwriting course I took was with Mava Moore.
Oh,
Mava
wow.
Moore taught playwriting at York, and one of the things I loved about his playwriting course was he would talk about his process, and he wouldn't say it in such a way that he would be telling you how to do it, but there was something about it that really rang true with me. The sense that he said, I grew up, we were doing British plays, that we were doing American plays, and when we wanted to do something else. And he was talking about how they were creating Canadian theater and how they fought to get it produced and how they produced it themselves. And I think that really started me on a kind of trajectory. And we practiced playwriting. I was okay. I'm sure he did not expect me to be a playwright. Um, but the notion of him doing it himself. And his mother was a theater practitioner, famous theater practitioner. But the way he told it, he says, we had to fight to do it ourselves, tell our stories. And that stayed with me. And so when I was when I was at university, I was artistic director of Cabaret, which was a extracurricular student theater company. And so I did write a play there at the university. It was a musical. It was a play of its time. I was like 19. And then Africa Solo, I'd traveled to Africa, came back, had stories to tell, was involved in Nightwood Theater's 5-minute feminist cabaret. And the great thing about that, they asked me to tell a story. Someone asked me, I still wasn't a playwright, I was interested, but someone asked me, I said yes. And the good thing about 5-minute feminist cabaret is that if it's terrible, it's only 5 minutes long. If it's great, people want more. And so I told this 5-minute excerpt and people wanted more. And it was about I mythologized my trip to Africa. And when I took the play around, like I had worked as an office manager at Factory Theater as a part-time job. So I took it to everybody. Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody. The white theaters, the black theaters. So, that cockiness that you have when you're young, it's like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to do it myself. So I applied for a grant and I got turned down. And, I went, well, I am going to apply again and I'm going to do a better job of the application. So it took me, because then you could apply 6 months apart. So I applied again and I did get it. And so I produced it. Diane English used to be the producer at Factory. And I said, Diane, you're opening a brand new space, the Studio Theater. I said, when is it opening and how much does it cost? And she said, we don't know when it's opening. We think it's opening at this date. And how much it costs, we're working it out. And I said, I have an offer for you. How about you give me the space for free? We'll be the guinea pigs. We'll see what's wrong with the space. And you can have an in association with credit on my poster.
That is a great story.
Cocky as hell. And then I needed to post an equity bond. So I went to Theater, which was a theater founded by Jeff Henry. And I said, listen, you want an in association with? Cocky as all hell. And if you pay the bond, because I showed them my bank account, I've raised all the money, I can cover it if we close. If you put the bond in, you can get an so it was Africa Solo Productions in association with Factory Theater and Theater Fountainhead presents Africa Solo. And so we opened Factory Studio. And so that kind of chutzpah, sometimes I think teachers can crush that, but teachers can also inspire. As I say, Mavor Morse talked about doing it himself. We can inspire that.
That's it. Look at Trey Anthony, I mean, what an inspiration, right?
You know how many times I've seen that production, not only at Mervish, but before Mervish. And Wayne, who was the director and the person who helped was part of the development process. There were a number of women. DeBee came out of that group too. Wayne was part of that, was in that show, and they really workshopped that show for a couple of years. They went around performing excerpts of it. An extraordinary group of storytellers, of theater practitioners. They wonderful.
Incredible.
Africa Solo was a success in terms of, we sold out. We got good reviews. I think, this is my theory, is that whether it had gotten bad or good reviews, the fact that I had done it, suddenly people thought I was established just because I had done it. Right. So I definitely encourage my students to do it yourself. Do it yourself, bring people over, invite people over, invite people to see your stuff. Can I be greedy and ask you about your writing process? Because I'm nosy. I want to know how other writers do it. Because truth be known, even though I teach playwriting, I think I'm sure there's another way I can do this better. It must be easier somehow. How do you write? What's your writing process?
It changes really for every show, but lately it's more, it leads with character usually, and it's very organic. It goes where it needs to go, and I discover the play as I write it. And I mean, one thing I do tell my students is the difference between writing for the stage and writing for film or anything else is it leads with voice and the music of the voice, and we have to fall in love with the music of voices.
I love
that. That's how it is for me. And then of course with workshops, if I'm lucky enough to have a workshop or a reading, it's fear. And it's like, there's 8 actors going to be in a room tomorrow. I better bloody well do something. And then it kind of flows. It's never painful for me. I love writing, and I pretty much write as fast as I can type, but sporadically, you know.
Well, you're writing a novel now. Are you everyday, or are you a binge writer?
Binge writer, because I did it. I was on sabbatical for the first part of the pandemic, and I did a lot of writing then. And then once I had to start preparing for the fall for classes, I haven't written. I think I wrote one evening for 2 hours since September, because also I'm doing a show with children on Zoom. And how about you?
I'm a binge writer too. I remember asking this question of Michael Ondaatje. I said, because I'm kind of nosy. I want to see how people do it. Maybe they've got a better method than I do. I didn't ask Michael Ondaatje. I asked Margaret Atwood. And she talks about, she doesn't write every day. She writes in tranches. And I remember reading about Michael Ondaatje. He writes every day. He writes a bit every day. He
writes by hand, I think.
He writes by hand.
Yeah.
So, and Dion Brand writes by hand. And she had this great quote about the relationship. It's a very old relationship between the fingers, the pen or pencil, and the brain. That goes from the time we first started making marks on walls or papers. Yeah. So
do you ever write by hand?
I do sometimes. But I have so many diaries and journals, and I hope when I die, people come and burn them. Do not put them away somewhere. People don't need to write that. So I've got a lot of things around feelings, but I've also transferred to computer in a way. There are tricks I use. I know how to, if I'm writing, I know how not to look at the writing and be in the writing while I'm typing. I know if I'm feeling kind of like, sometimes I trick myself and I want to, and look, if I'm looking at my writing, I start being the editor. So I can't look at it. So I'll stop myself. So sometimes when the editor voice is very strong, like especially when I'm teaching, that front voice is really strong. When I'm doing that writing on the computer, I shrink the words to like 0.6 so that I can't read it. And so that I have this kind of like, and you have, when you type something wrong, you can feel it. There's an intelligence in the tips of your fingers. And if it's spelled wrong, I'll be able to follow it. And these, and so I make sure that I can be in the story, not editing. I need the editor later, but she can't write a play. She thinks she can write a play. She can't write a play.
That's very true. I also want to ask you about a couple of things. And I know that you made some really fascinating changes to Harlem Duet in the latest production at Tarragon, I thought, and especially around the father and Nova Scotia. Didn't you? Was that my
It's always
imagination?
He was always from Nova Scotia. I think the production was different and featured a certain aspect of him in a different way because he was always from Nova Scotia. But that story was a bit more prominent
I thought
this
so.
time. And you're not the only one to say that. Because I don't know which production. Which production you would have seen the Tarragon?
Yeah, the
Years
Tarragon.
ago?
Yeah.
Wow. It was also a different actor playing the role, but Walter played it. The first time he played it actually was Stratford.
Oh,
I had cast him in The Adventures of a Black Girl in Search of God, and I said he's got to try Canada. Oh no,
oh,
the
wow.
first time, I'm lying. I'm just remembering myself. We had done a small production in a New York off Broadway theater, and Walter came and played Canada there, and I went, "That's him." He he brings Nova Scotia with him, and that presence, the strength of it, just resonated in a way that was implicit. And a lot of that is Walter. But no,
Did,
he's always been from Nova Scotia. And so
did you do any revisions in the production? What is it, 2 years ago?
I think the revisions, did we do any revisions? I don't think we did.
Oh, amazing. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, it's
It was the
because that's
production.
something I really enjoyed about this doing Line in the Streets with you is your wonderful suggestion that to be young, um, translate the Isabel's words into a Jamaican um, language, kind of dialect, and to keep it alive. And it was very important to me. I wrote in the notes, I want to keep it alive. I want it doesn't. Isabel doesn't have to be Portuguese,
You have
and
that in in the play in part of the front part of the play before the play starts. You say, after you list the characters, you say, um, you talk about Isabel being Portuguese, and he says, but for other productions, this character can be from any culture.
yeah,
When I read that, I just went, oh, you're just leaving space for me to be in the script and I jumped in.
I
And
loved it.
so to me, you just left it open. I walked in. To be young, Anita Africa, that woman is an extraordinary
Oh yeah,
artist, an
yeah.
extraordinary performer,
Oh,
teacher. She has a whole approach to writing called the Anita Africa method. I don't know this, but I'm going to start learning what it is because this
yeah.
approach to that's really quite well thought out. She's been working on it for 10 years and has taught it when she ran her own school. And I know she's going to be teaching it at the Soul Pepper Academy this year.
Uh,
Um, she agreed to do the translation because while one of my parents is Jamaican, and the Jamaicans have fought for a long time, to decolonize their understanding of language. It's usually called a patois, a pidgin, a derivative of not proper English, not.
oh,
And
yeah.
what happened is that people studied it, and it was encouraged by actually artists, a woman called Miss Lou, who wrote in this vernacular, and they have discovered it as a language. It's a hybrid of the different influences. It has African words, things like wunu nunu, which
Wow.
means sweetheart, are actually, they come from some of the West African influences. The structure of words, the kind of tenses used have African influences. It's also a lot of English words, some French, some Spanish, depending on what the influences and
Incredible.
the history of
That's
the place.
beautiful.
So
Yeah.
my mother's Jamaican, but I don't speak Jamaican, but I understand it.
Uh,
Debbie understands it, speaks it, is a student of it, and
wow.
she was the perfect person to do the translation.
Uh,
And I wish we had more time to explore the whole thing, but it just, one of the things you said to me when I told you, I said, I'm going to look at this approach to Line in the Streets, and you talked about, just remember that Isabel, whose name is also translated to a more culturally specific
Imogen.
name, Imogene. She no,
Yeah.
she calls her Imogene.
Imogen.
Imogene.
Nice.
Uh,
Nice.
and you said, remember, she's an outsider. So
Yeah.
it really inspired me to like look at, what's at the heart of this play. where are we going? What's the journey I'm going to try to to render? And you know, the psychological, the intellectual, the social violence in society, in our lives, in our relationships. And how do we move from notions of retribution to forgiveness? Your play does it, and it's not preachy. Your play does it, and it's not taking you on a traditional journey. Your play does it, and it is telling you this is deeper than a superficial narrative. You're going to relax your way through this play. As an aside, I remember Julie Dash wrote a film called, and produced a film, directed a film called Daughters of the Dust. And I went to see it at TIFF. And she said, you know, a bunch of Black artists met with her before. She's an extraordinary filmmaker. And he said, do you have anything to tell us? Should we prepare anything? She said, just let it wash over you. Let it wash over you. And that's the thing about, I think, I would advise people with Line in the Streets, let it wash over you, take it in, go with it. Don't have your preconceived notions, just go with it. And so to be plays Imogene, who's Isabel. And also we brought on Aaron Davis, who is an extraordinary composer, musician, artist. You know Aaron.
Yeah, I think we attend the same New Year's at mutual friends. Yeah.
Exactly. And I knew his mom. His mom is a wonderful, Natalie Davis is a wonderful scholar. He had accompanied his mom to a production, and we got to talking, and I recognized him from the jazz, Queen Street Jazz. I remember him from years ago. Right. And so you know, I asked him if he was ever interested in theater, and this was years ago. And so I called him out of the blue and says, you got to do this project. It's
I'm so excited to hear it.
It's this, and what is an audio play? Is it really a radio play? Are we really doing a reading? Are we? And so looking at this form and exploring it with voice, with different characters, the music is just beautiful. And the actors in the cast are amazing. We've got Nancy Polk, we've got Susan Coyne, we've got Ordina Stevens, Debee Young, Anita Africa, we've got John Blackwood, and we've got Martin Julian. They're just wonderful. And because we had so little time, like 3 hours rehearsal, the play is 2 hours long. And then because I couldn't sleep one night, they gave me 3 more hours rehearsal, and then we taped it. Because Aaron Davis has so much experience with film and scoring movies, we spotted the audio play, which means we put the music in before it was recorded. We said, this is where we would want the music. Let's look at putting it there, because we knew there was only going to be a very short turnaround. Really good people working hard, and I think that I've heard it. I can't wait to hear it. I can't.
Too. Me
but
too.
I haven't heard the edited version, but great acting and great story with an important and layered theme. You know, you don't start the worlds that you bring together and the world that this narrative is traveling through. One of the things that I remember reading that I think that I really, really miss in this version is the visual. You have an ensemble of people who change characters.
Yeah.
And they're all in a circle. So you have this circle on stage and you see the transformation. And so the transformation that you're requesting in the story is in the physicality of the play.
It is. That's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see you direct a physical stage version one day. What, that would be such an honor.
That would be, because you couldn't do that. There's no way of doing that.
Yeah.
One of the things I had tasked Aaron with was look at breath, look at reminding us that she's in every scene, that she's watching every scene, and that stuff, it's done visually. Radio cannot fully do it.
But it might be better than Zoom plays. What do you think? What do you think about Do you think they'll continue when all this is over?
Hell to the no, it will not continue. I don't
No?
know if I don't. I think there are the thing I miss most. Why I don't think is that there's such, theater is an oral mode, but there's a visual mode to it that it's not just oral. It's not just an audio. It's not just about the text. It's the text physically manifested in three-dimensional space. So, and there is something, and I know there's a word for it, and I'm sorry I can't find it. I haven't found it before, so it's not that I've lost this word. The energy of someone in a room
Yeah.
that's exchanged, whether you're in the audience next to someone you don't know. Peter Brook calls it urban church, a theater. You're sitting next to people you do not know, you're breathing and laughing with them, and somehow there's an exchange.
Hmm.
For me, the exchange is also with the people on stage.
Yeah.
They're live. There's something else that travels that cannot be communicated in a virtual world.
It can't. No. You are breathing the same air, and it is now. It's in the present.
And what's interesting is to see what Richard has done with the Resties, Rick Roberts production. Richard has really attempted to do a kind of immersive production. So you can look at this play that's on, not particularly Zoom, but I think it's on a website, but you can follow versions of the stories. And apparently there are 80 versions of the story you can see depending where you click.
Whoa.
And it's live.
The liveness is interesting, isn't it?
The liveness brings something really important. But I miss that energy. Like if I get a chance to direct something else when the lockdowns are over and we've all been vaccinated, I want to do something where the audience is very close to the actors.
My favorite theater is no bigger than 50 seats.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
200 is max. Yeah, max.
I agree. When I did Adventures, when Mervish approached me about doing it, they asked me to do it at the Princess of Wales, and I said no. Can we stay at Harbourfront? Because the scale is one that makes 25 people on stage a large idea, and it feels like we can communicate with the back of the theater there. Whereas in a big one, I think some of the ideas would be lost or be so watered down we'd lose it.
It's just not the same. Yeah, it's a theater needs to be close up, I think. And I saw it at Harbourfront, and it did feel close up. It felt right.
That's a play I'd love to do again too at some point, because it tells a very unusual story in a way that I was interested in looking at how I was looking at Black aesthetics, and there was this particular. When I traveled to Africa, there was a particular kind of storytelling that I saw more than once, where music, the poet, dancers, musicians all told the same story, sometimes at the same time, sometimes one telling the, and I thought, how can I adapt that? Because I'm a Westerner, but I'm African. So how does this African Westerner kind of like inhabit this? You investigate and apply a process that reflects her. And that's one of the shows I really enjoy. There's something big and I'm telling out of school stories here.
No, I love, and I remember them, all the people becoming the water, and
That's
you
exactly.
absolutely did that. Yeah.
And the whole music is most of the music is no, all the music is a cappella. So we use a cappella vocalese. But that production nearly didn't happen. If it wasn't for Obsidian and Nightwood getting together, it wouldn't have happened. I was actually the one of the writers in residence at Can Stage, and I was also running this thing called the Afro-Canadian Playwrights Festival. And I brought the script and I said, listen, could you guys do a reading? There's 25 people in it. I know, but and they said, they've put their money elsewhere. They said no. And what I heard afterwards was, I don't know who it was, maybe Trash told me, is that they thought I got that Janet Sears had Governor Generalese. She had these big ideas because it was
What?
after Harlem Duet.
Oh,
Like, I went, I don't care. I think it's great. I liked it. And so I included it as part of the Afro-Canadian Playwrights Festival, where we brought playwrights from across the country together to kind of celebrate, promote, develop, encourage each other. And the response to just hearing a reading with some of the music, I co-wrote the music with
oh,
Alessandra Nunez, a fantastic musician, singer, percussionist. So that play never got done. I had asked Alison Seeley Smith to read the leading role in the reading, and after the reading, she said, because she was artistic director of the just nearly born company Obsidian, and she said we should open Obsidian with this play. And so that's how it came to be.
wow.
Because it nearly didn't happen. I think sometimes, people are, how do people receive your work? For what?
That's so true with Palace of the End. It started in New York because I'd been commissioned by a company there, but then I couldn't get it done here. And Iris really was trying to push it at Can Stage, but instead it was only because Rachel Corrie's, the play that was made up of her emails home when
Right.
she stood up and she was killed by the Israeli tank.
Yeah.
The board at Can Stage didn't want to do it because they felt it was Israeli. So that's an unfortunate reason, because I think it's a really important piece, but that's the
Exactly.
only reason mine got in. And then since
Wow.
it's been all around the world in many languages, and it would have just, because it was in New York, but it was only for a couple of weeks and not many people saw it, and it would have died.
Yeah. And so it proves so
Yeah,
much is based on the taste of the people who can produce it.
yeah.
And, and I don't know if I have the energy to do it myself anymore, but I've been working on one play I'm working on a novel, but I'm working on one play, and I really was about, not this summer, but the summer before, I did a draft, and it was just not good in a way that I felt, if I give this out, this is going to change. As again, uh, I'm so strong. I've got a lot of ego. I'm arrogant, but I'm afraid to give this play out because people are going to dent it, and I'm going to go, okay, I'll move it. And
No,
so,
we're all
I
dying
keep
for your next play. We are.
I'm thinking of how do I do it myself without
Right.
having to, like, as you say, try and fulfill the playwright's ideas, and allowing myself to actually put all my ideas down. What I mean by that is, so for instance, someone was going to interview me about Black History Month, and I told them, listen, I have some very unconventional ideas about Black History Month, because sometimes I think, because I am 61, I am tired of telling white people that I'm human. Like, I've done a lot of that. I'm really human. We invented this. We invented that.
Yeah.
Hey, human. I'm tired of it. Right now, I'm really trying to figure out, how can I remind myself not to ingest that you're not human, because you do the same way, in the same way, misogyny, we internalize that stuff.
Completely. Yeah.
So the implicit bias around that is stuff I'm really trying to look at. And so not all of Black History Month is like that, but I find that for a lot of Black people who are quite aware of the history in general terms, you can look, and there are segments that exist in virtual space that are actually there to encourage you to heal certain parts of yourself that have been scarred by the kind of violence that racism is, whether it's an emotional violence, very much in the sense of your approach to line in the streets, whether it's emotional, whether it's intellectual, whether it's social, it does damage to us.
Yeah.
And trying to look at, how do we heal this? I met someone who I'd known at university, and they said, oh, I remember you. I just thought you were angry all the time.
Ah.
And
Oh.
she said, I'm so sorry. I didn't have any idea. She was really wonderful. Said, I had no idea what you're going through. I had no consciousness. Your experience was not in my awareness. And clearly she had changed, and it was wonderful. But I'm more angry now than ever. I have never been this angry. And so sometimes I go, do people want to listen to my angry rant?
Yes, yes,
Really?
and they need to. And I wanted to ask you about that, Janet, because this whole, along with the wonderful gender revolution, is the dismantling of theater is white supremacist, and we have to shut it down, tear it down in every way we can. And I just wanted to know your thoughts about that, about really dismantling what was a horrific white supremacist system.
I've known about it in terms of race and gender. You know, you remember Rena Fraticelli did that status of
Yeah,
women in Canadian theater, and that was like in '82. And then Rebecca Burton, I think Rebecca Burton did something in 2006. She's with Playwrights Guild. And then there was this equity in theater group organization that I think Playwrights Guild supported that was really looking at the bias in theater. You know, most of the people who go into theater schools, you know, theater programs at universities or colleges, most of them, I think I'm not pulling this number out of my ass. I think the number is 58% are women. By
oh,
the
at
time
least.
by the time we get to the profession, 30% are women.
Yeah.
And this was the 2006 Rebecca Burton paper, her report. And and in 2015, Lainey Newman, as part of this event, they gathered women to look at the status of women now and look at Rena Fraticelli's How Far Had We Come. You know who suffers the most is playwrights.
Oh, that's
Playwrights Guild say that while it's improved since 1982, only 30% of the playwrights produced are women. Still.
yeah.
So one of the things that Rena Fraticelli said was, and I think it applies to gender as well as race. She says, you know, of course, the more explicit, overt racists are just gonna do what racists do until we kick them out or find a way to stop them having power.
Mm.
It's easy to say, hard to do. But she says that people, even who are open, you know, so there's a board made up, let's just say mainly of men, board made up of men, and they're looking for a new artistic director.
Yeah.
And this is Rena Fraticelli. She says, this, and I'm paraphrasing, she says, the board will be open and interview a lot of people and be moved by a lot of people. But there'll be one person who kind of grew up like them, has similar beliefs as they do, that they'll be moved by.
Yeah.
And they'll go, that's the person I want to run this theater.
Unconscious bias. Yeah. It's everywhere.
Unconscious bias. So
Yeah.
this artistic director who's open, he's open. He will read a bunch of plays. He'll read everybody's plays, invite everybody to send their plays. But there'll be this one about a guy who grew up just like he did, who went through something just like he did, that he'll go, I got to put that in my season. And this will be written probably by a male playwright and will involve more male characters.
Yeah.
And that's how women move from the, you know, we're even the majority of the audience, but we move from the majority in training to the profession we aren't. And I think it's much worse for people who live at the intersection of race and gender. And what do we do about it?
It's starting. It does seem to be, you know, this movement.
It does seem to be starting. I worry. I think maybe because I'm old, I'm kind of afraid that it's a window, and unless we take the opportunity now, this window will close. I worry that after the pandemic is over, once the lockdown and the fear's over, no one will listen. We'll go back to how it used to be.
Do you really think so? That what with we've got Wayne, we've got Tana Show, we've got Luke.
I remember when I was sure, this is how jaded I was then, that Obama would not win. I said, that's America. I knew America. And then he won. And I went, I said in my own mind, I said, Harlem Duet is a dated piece because it doesn't reflect things that are going on. Like I said in my own mind, that things are going on that I'm not aware of, because I remember going to Europe the year Obama won. I've been to Europe lots of times. I went with my sisters. People would call out. They would say, Obama! And smile at us. I've never been reacted to. And even walking down the streets in Toronto, people were like, would look at me. I didn't realize people weren't looking at me until people started, like people were happy. And then the resistance started to happen. And then Trump happened. And I went, what
happened.
what the bleeping bleep?
Yeah, it's much worse. I think it is much worse than we even imagined.
And I knew it was bad, but I didn't think. And what I'm kind of, why should I be grateful? But I feel grateful for is that I thought a majority of people in that country hate Black people. And that scared me. And I now don't think a majority do, because for me, as much as we can say it's about politics and it's not about financial insecurity. One woman took a private jet to the insurrection. These people are lawyers. Go and look at they're lawyers, doctors, they are real estate agents. These people are CEOs of company. We have a myth that it's people who are working class and not educated.
And out of jobs and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
It might be them too, but they are not the main propellants of this.
No.
It's a middle class thing.
And the guy with the horns, the son of a judge.
And he wants organic food.
Yeah.
What the? And I'm thinking, if those were Black people, we would be dead.
Oh, yes.
So I think part of my anger is that I just, whether it's about Black History Month, it's like, I can't convince you that I'm human anymore. Nothing I have done has convinced you. My allies are still my allies. But, here we have a guy in who's going to be running for prime minister who says, take Canada back. Take it back from who exactly?
Yeah, who?
So in terms of what to do, I don't know. I think that us who believe in equality just need to keep finding spaces to include everybody. That's all we can do. I think that it's hard to change society, It's a very big idea. I think that will theaters just shut down and do something different? Resentment is built up when you do that. I think we should just keep going. I would like to see real change. I would like boards to support the people of color who they have brought to their companies. I would like them to hire more. I would like, I'm talking about Black people, but we need more Asian playwrights, more Asian artistic directors, more Asian companies, Indigenous companies, more Indigenous playwrights, more Indigenous artists. So I'm going to say Asian is such a big concept. South Asian, East Asian. We need to see. I know this is gonna. My mind went to a silly place, and I went. When I was growing up, one of the only places where I saw a multicultural world was Star Trek, and even though it was a kind of faux multicultural world, it was us. We were all humans, and other people were foreigners. And I went, we need a new mythology. We need a new mythology about who the we are and who the they is.
Who the we are, and also people with different abilities.
Absolutely.
Accent.
When I found Immanuel Kant, I hate Immanuel Kant because he believed that Black people were not human. His philosophy suggested that Black people have no memory because they do not have a written script, therefore they are not human and not. So even though he was in Germany, he was not part of the Atlantic slave trade per se, even though Italy and Germany supplied the boats and they were boat makers a lot. This is someone we teach as the father of Enlightenment.
It's like teaching
It's
every philosophy department. My God.
exactly. So I go, it's deep. We've got to do deep digging. So in a way, putting in artistic directors who reflect people who are excellent artists as well. But it's deep. We've got to cut it to its
Oh
core.
yeah, all the schools named after John A. Macdonald, who put a price on Indigenous heads and starved them. Said starved them literally. That that those words were found. But they are starting to take down those names of schools. It's beginning. Also, audiences. We
Yeah.
need to reach out and it's proven because of this pandemic, and the government has the money. They have the money that theater should be free, like museums are in Europe, so that we can reach audiences that are not just 75% white and middle class.
And I think we can do it. What's happened in the past when, for instance, when I've done productions, some mainstream theaters will say, okay, who are the Black people? Who should we contact? We want to, and then so they make contact with the mavens of the particular group, and they will get people. At Stratford, they made sure that they got people and got teams, and they got buses, and they got people to pay for buses to come from Toronto to see Harlem Duet. But I find that after it's done, they go, okay, we've done that investment.
Yeah.
Why aren't they coming back? And I'm going, so you do it once.
Yeah.
I think that if people are going to make a commitment, you
Full
got to
on.
make a commitment.
Yeah.
So say I'm going to try for 7 years. And
Yeah.
then if it's not working, try something else. You got to be
Yeah.
committed to the idea. Unless we are promoting the equality of all people,
Yeah.
whether it's race, whether it's religion, whether it's gender, whether it's ability, whether it's sexual preference, all of that,
Yeah.
unless we are doing that, we are actually hindering it.
Completely. And then as theater makers, we become part of the enemy. Like it's
Exactly.
yeah.
How long have we been talking? I would like to do this again. I
I
feel
would too.
I think we've only kind of like touch the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to talk about, and
There's so much.
and and I love your work.
I adore your work. I
Yeah,
worship you as an artist, and
it's
I
the
just want to
production.
be able to serve in any way I can as an ally this absolutely necessary revolution. I'm horrified by even though every play I've written has been an attempt to attack the mainstream, still I don't want to be part of it. I want to do anything, whether it's bowing out, whether it's
All we can do is our best. You've always been supportive of me. You have always been encouraging. Just keep doing that. Just keep doing you. Uh, and I think. Do you remember there was one point where there was a question among some feminists whether men could be feminists? I think men
right.
have to be feminists. Otherwise, who's going to tell other men? So
Yep.
I think that it's up to our white allies to tell other white people, to point out
Yeah.
to other white people about what's wrong. And
Yeah.
I can start looking at healing myself because I have to look at the damage this has caused me. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Well, thank you. You're amazing. Thank you. I
Um,
can't wait to hear this.
I'm inspired by you, and especially how
Likewise.
prolific you are. And I might I'm going to steal one of your what you talked about in terms of writing in my class, and we'll talk more about that book because we have to. As I said,
Oh
I
yeah,
want
I'd
you
love
to do a
to.
chapter in this book, and I'm going to ask a few other people. But yeah, let's talk about you
I'd
know.
love to. And maybe our novels will come out at the same time in 5 years.